We're just fresh, Jane, from the 6th running of the Dublin Racing Festival. What a weekend it was. Crowds 40% up in 2022, 27% or 25% of the crowds, of course, coming from across the water in the UK. Some of your highlights.
I don't know how fresh I am. It was a fantastic weekend. The equine highlights, we'll start on the bumper the first day, which is an unusual place to start considering you've 8 grade 1s, but John Kiley being one of the most popular people in racing, the Gleesons, who obviously work with Brian and RTE, and John, his son, is such an emerging talent. The very well named A Dream to Share kind of lit up the ending of day one and wrapped it up lovely. He's a very exciting horse for them, a homebred, to beat what looked like a very competitive field with pace that you might be more reticent with September weekend at Leopardstown and not in February. So A Dream to Share for me. I think everything that was right about racing was in that horse. And
of course, as Brian Gleeson said afterwards, last Christmas time, they were all sitting around the table, Christmas Day, and they decided,
name this homebred.
We have to name it. And what a name, and what a way to name it, and what how it delivered in its name.
And it's so true. They, all their family were there, and their neighbours and friends, and everybody will enjoy it and hopefully continue to enjoy him. And as I say, John, being on one end of the spectrum, been around a long time, probably the best trainer of a bumper horse in Ireland, and that's saying something. To John, John Gleeson, being so young, doing his leaving cert, 2 ends of the scale and 2 major talents. Yeah,
what a result it was for the Gleeson Kiley families as well. And of course, a brilliant training performance by John Kiley. We hadn't seen this horse since June time when he won his winner's bumper at Roscommon, following up a very impressive win at Tipperary, his maiden bumper. He was spot on for the day. But listening to Brian Gleeson afterwards, this was the plan since that winner's bumper in Roscommon in June.
Funny that. John Kiley with a plan.
Nah, yeah.
They admitted they were tempted by the 1.5 mile amateur maiden at Galway, and they said, no, we're going to train for February. That's what you call a long-term plan. Yes, and it
couldn't have worked out any better. Right, that's your first highlight. Second highlight?
The second highlight would be probably an equine performance that impressed me in a sensational performance in the Arkle from El Fabiolo. It looked like a race that had great depth and a lot of pace, and it lived up to that billing with Dysart Dynamo going a million in front. Appreciated not picking up the way we expected him to. Banbridge is a good horse, and he was badly outpaced from the back of the home straights, from the third last, and he stayed on but showed that he didn't have the pace for 2 miles and that he needs to go up and trip, and that pace was exposed by El Fabiolo being the only horse that could pick up off that Dysart Dynamo red hot fire pace. So Darrell Jacob got, I'd imagine, a great thrill out of that. It was one of 6 grade 1s for Willie Mullins, but arguably that was the one that got me the most excited.
Yeah, well, I'd be the same as you. I just thought there was so much strength and depth in it. That was the one I was really looking forward to, that grade 1, because you could make a case for so many of them in it. I thought Banbridge has really finished off his race really well.
All you're missing is John Bon.
Well, that was it. And of course, El Fabiolo was only beaten, a neck by John Bon in the grade 1 novice hurdle at entry last spring.
Yeah, and anybody who was at Leopardstown or has seen this horse physically, he's quite a tall but lean, narrow type. I thought he was a little bit foolish on his chase debut, but he just wasn't as fluent as a natural chaser you'd expect. So to go from a maiden beginners, there was no pressure applied to him, to grade 1 that there was serious pressure applied to him. That really impressed me, and he got his jumping together, and I'd expect him to be even better at the festival. He's also got a very good mental constitution, which, again, you need to be the whole package if you're going to be that good.
Definitely. It sets up a mouth-watering rematch, shall we say, with John Bon, of course, and El Fabiolo. If the 2 horses, all things being equal, get there, please God, in one piece for the Arkle as well. As we said, there's only a neck separating them from that run and entry as well. And barring, what was it, 3 out or 4 hours, Darrell Jacobson afterwards, I think that was a bit of my fault, more so the horse's fault. It was a good round of jumping.
Miscommunication, yeah. And I know my next highlight is going to be another novice, and it's silly because State Man and Gallop and Deschamps were brilliant, but Mighty Potter, just the return of Davy Russell into the grade 1 winners enclosure, he wasn't gone for long, we know that, but it's rare somebody retires at his age still riding as well as he is. And I know Gordon had Jerry Colomb winning the Scilly Isles in Sandown, but this guy has the world at his feet, and having jumped okay when he won the Drinmore, he put it all together at Leopardstown.
Rarely do we see Jack Kennedy getting animated. Remember Jack Kennedy after he won the Drinmore, Mighty Potter, and when speaking to me on his way home, I've never heard Jack Kennedy that excited. That shows how much he and Gordon and Davey and all the team feel how good this horse could be. He's already a very good horse. That's his 4th Grade 1, but I thought he was exceptional the other day.
Even last year when he won his novice Grade 1 at Punchestown, they were always dreaming of chasing him, and now he's won 2 Grade 1s, and the dream would be the Gold Cup, and that's the kind of horse that Gordon likes to buy, those big point-to-pointers. He came with having not ran in a point-to-point because it was during the COVID years, so they bought him on spec from Walter Connors, who of course sold Don Cossack, who ended up winning the Gold Cup for Gordon Elliott, and hopefully there'll be a nice bit of symmetry. And before we wrap up our highlights, we must mention the biggest highlight of the weekend, Kevin, was, for me, it was probably the most enjoyable race meeting I've ever been at in this country, and that's saying something.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with you. The atmosphere was electric there. The crowds, record crowds there for the Dublin Racing Festival, up 40% in 2022. And I think one of the key things as well is there was so many visitors from across the water as well. The amount of English, Scottish, Welsh accents we heard, and they were so complimentary about the 2 days racing at Leopardstown as well, stopping to chat to us and saying what the value, it was such good value, and also it was a relaxed atmosphere. And they basically could go anywhere they wanted as well. And the atmosphere, they were glowing. Any of the people from across the water I met couldn't speak high enough about the weekend they had.
Yeah, and it's genuine racing fans. It's all good in saying 100,000 people came through the gates, but were they there to see a concert? Were they there to get drunk? Were they there to do something other than watch the racing? These people were genuine racing fans. They weren't missing a race because they were queuing for food. They weren't there for anything other than that, and I hung around after the bumper both days, and they were genuinely elated with what they saw in terms of equine sport. And yes, to have the fans coming from the UK was major, because there's a lot of headlines in the UK at the moment that doesn't concern the fan, and maybe we just need to remind ourselves to not alienate that fan base, because the admiration for the animal is still very much there. And I think as well, for the capital city of Dublin, we have rugby, we have GAA, but we do racing very well in this country, and sometimes we don't integrate the society of outside of our own industry into that. And I hope that people from Dublin who maybe don't ordinarily go racing, maybe go once or twice a year, came to the races and enjoyed it, because I don't see why you wouldn't.
And even going back to the crowds, 20 minutes, half an hour, I thought was very noticeable before the first race in each of the 2 days. The whole parade ring, which is a big parade ring, as we know, around Leopardstown, it was 10 deep with people. They wanted to get a look at the horses well before even the jockeys came into the parade ring.
Yeah, they were there to see the horses. They weren't there for any other reason. And look, we can back it up with results across the water, but all the best horses were there, bar a few. And it was just an amazing presence and feeling and roar. The roar before the first was like the supreme. The cheer for Honeysuckle as she left the ring, and then when she came back into the second place enclosure, all of those things tell me that these people were there to see the horse. And sometimes we forget that, and it just reminded us all why we all do it. And the sport of horse racing is about the horse.
Definitely. And also, finally, before we wrap up, is huge credit to Tim Husbands and all his team at Leopardstown, and all the ground staff as well. Larkin Weir had the ground, Jane Headley, all the ground staff had in difficult circumstances, had it presented perfectly. They've come in for plenty of stick over the last few years, but they deserve plenty of credit in putting on what was a brilliant show over the weekend.
Yeah, credit where it's due. There was no non-runner due to ground. There was no complaints on the Sunday about horses who ran on the Saturday. There was no obvious complaints from the public in terms of queuing, in terms of facilities, and I'm sure they'll use this to build on. They have now established themselves as the go-to Irish festival, and it'll be up to all the other festivals now to set that, to meet that standard, because it was just so enjoyable. Now I know the weather plays its part, all the stars aligned, but I'm sure Team Leopardstown are basking in that glory, and we'll build on it for next year.
And 12 individual winning owners as well.
I didn't realise that. That's when everybody's concentrating on the domination of William Mullins, that's positive.
big time. It was a brilliant weekend. Well done Leopardstown, and well done all the team as well. What a weekend it was. Dublin Racing Festival 2023, record-breaking crowds, and a lot of overseas visitors as well, which hopefully we can get a couple of more English trained horses or UK trained horses to come for next year.